CJ Mosely has been put on IR, ending his 2024 season and potentially his Jets career. What's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, helping me reach my goal of 2,000 subscribers. But hopping right into the video, Rich Cimini tweets out, linebacker CJ Mosely is going to injured reserve per the head coach Jeff Ulbrich. It likely ends his season and probably his Jets career. CJ Mosely recently has been dealing with a neck injury that held him out the past couple games. It was different from the toe injury that held him out for the beginning of the season, but it's been a really rough season for one of the New York Jets defensive captains and a guy who has been one of the best players on the Jets for a number of years here. CJ Mosely came over from the Baltimore Ravens to the New York Jets in free agency. Was a first-team All-Pro with the Ravens, was a first-team All-Pro with the New York Jets, and was the heart and soul of our defense. He wore the green dot on his helmet and was the leader of the defense, listened to the play calls from the head coaches, and relayed the play to the rest of the Jets defense. Him being injured, he's a great tackler, definitely part of the reason why the New York Jets, the defense has been so bad at tackling. They're missing their number one tackler. So this is obviously bad for the Jets because while they don't have a good chance of making the playoffs, this hurts the Jets leadership-wise. We see how this team lacks leadership, and CJ Mosely is a leader in the locker room and on the field that they're now missing, which could make it even worse for the Jets. However, this is probably the end of his Jets career because he is on a big contract that the Jets would save money for. They would save money by cutting him next year in 2025. They're going to cut him and designate it as a after June 1st release, which means they're going to cut him before June 1st, but they're going to tell the league, treat this like a post June 1st cut. So that the difference between the prior or post June 1st cut is they can spread out the cap hit between 2 years if they designate it as a post June 1st cut. June 1st is the day the new NFL year begins, but it's not Madden. These players have real lives. So if a team is planning on releasing a player, the NFL lets them release them early so they give them more time to go find a new team and talk to new teams and stuff. But then they will go out and it's still treated like he was cut in the next year. So what do the Jets do now with losing CJ Mosely? He's been a great guy, a great linebacker, but they can't cut him because of the rise of Jamien Sherwood as well. He's had a ton of tackles this year for the Jets, season high in tackles for him. He has been behind the scenes with the Jets for the last couple of years, but this year, with the injury, CJ Mosely came into his own, has played really, really well. The bad thing with Jamien Sherwood is he is a free agent this season. He is going to, I'm sure, want a ton of money in free agency, whether that's with the Jets or another team. It's going to be interesting to see whether he decides to stay with the New York Jets, seeing how they've been really bad for the 3 years before this and then this year that he's been on the team. More options that the Jets could potentially pursue would be in the draft. If you looking at college football, there is Barrett Carter out of Clemson. He's a really good linebacker. Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma is another tackling monster that the Jets could pursue. He would require a second-round pick. We'll see if the new GM decides that a linebacker is the goal in the second round. But having Quinnen Williams under contract and under the big contract that he has signed, and him playing as well as he does with the amount of tackles he puts up, first-team All-Pro season in 2023, you have to imagine Quinnen Williams is going to be one of the inside linebackers, but he's going to need some more help. He's going to be Jets, of course, run a 4-3 defense. They have one inside linebacker, so he's going to be an off-ball linebacker for them, but he needs a running mate with him. So the Jets, whether they decide to go in the second round or later in the draft, that's to be determined. This draft, there isn't like a superstar linebacker prospect who is worthy of being taken with a high first-round pick, so that is not in play with our top 10 pick this year. We're going to have to see what happens there. More injury news. We also have Breece Hall being ruled out by the Jets for Sunday against the Dolphins. He has a hyperextension knee in his left knee, which was the knee that he tore his ACL versus the Broncos 2 years ago. Also, he has an MCL issue with that knee. So it sounds like he has a lot of problems going on. With this being a lost season, we got to make sure a guy that we got to put a lot of carries on and give the ball to a lot, Breece Hall, he needs to make sure he's as healthy as he can possibly be. So we don't want to play him in a game that he's not ready to go. Also, Quantez Stigers ruled out for tomorrow's game against the Miami Dolphins. But our secondary, no Quantez Stiggers. He would be, of course, a backup. He would be more likely to see time in a game against the Dolphins because Sauce Gardner he is doubtful to play. With the amount of other New York Jets that are injured for this game, you have to imagine that Sauce Gardner is not going to play. The Jets, unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to have the personnel to go out and win this football game, which sucks to see. Everyone talks about tanking. There's been every single day working on this channel, I go on the internet, I look up Jets news, Jets this, Jets that, multiple Google searches to try to find the number one news story for every single day. And there are a bunch of news stories that are saying that the Jets should be tanking. So do I think they should be tanking? The way I see it, I don't ever watch the Jets game and root for them to lose. But the difference is now, you of course want them to win, but now the losses don't feel as bad because there is some merit to losing. But of course, every single game, I still want to see them win, especially a game like this tomorrow against the Miami Dolphins, a team that the Jets have not beaten on the road. They have not flown down to Miami and beaten the Miami Dolphins since 2014, which is a frankly embarrassing streak. It shouldn't be possible to go on a winning streak like that against a team that you see every single season. The Jets need to find a way to get it going on the road. We have some smart commenters in our comment section talking about how Jalen Waddle always seems to go off against the Jets. Jalen Waddle is averaging about 125 yards per game receiving in his last two games against the New York Jets. We got to hold him in check. The defense is going to be cornerbacks. We're going to have DJ Reed up, of course, and then Brandon Echols is going to be that number 2 corner. DJ Reed is going to grab the Tyreek Hill responsibility, which is going to put Brandon Echols on Jalen Waddle in that matchup. The problem with the Dolphins is, of course, they have 2 elite wide receivers. Jalen Waddle doesn't have a ton of yards this season, but knowing what kind of prospect he was coming out of Alabama, knowing what he did earlier in his career, it's easy to see that this is just an off season for him. There's some stuff going on with the Dolphins, playing calling wise and Tua injury wise, that's leading to him having a poor season. He's still a really good player. He is going to be a problem. The Jets need to cover him. As far as also with the tanking, the Jets, they are honestly bad enough where they don't even have to go out and tank. They can go out and try to win, which they've been doing all year, and it's only worked 3 times. Important in tanking discussions is 2 weeks after Miami, we have Jacksonville. And if there's a game to root for the Jets to lose in, that would be the game because the Jaguars hold the first overall pick in the draft. And while I don't think the Jets need the first overall pick because they need Travis Hunter or because they need a quarterback, getting up earlier on the board this year is going to be important to trade down. The Jets' plan should be to trade down from whatever pick they have this year to try to acquire extra draft capital for next year to trade up in the 2026 NFL draft to get one of those elite quarterbacks in that draft class. So in a perfect world, the Jets would, whatever their pick is, trade down, acquire draft capital for next year, and then they could hopefully rebuild this thing right around an elite quarterback. And then potentially we're going to see what this team looks like come that time. We're going to see if Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, what kind of what kind of contract they sign to stay with the team, or if they might have to be moved to acquire a quarterback like that. But these next 2 games are going to be pivotal in determining where the Jets are actually picking. And once these next 2 weeks happen, it's going to be a lot easier to project via mock drafts, via just looking at the landscape of the NFL and the landscape of the top prospects in college football as it gets cleared up by who declares and who goes back to school and who transfers to be able to start to determine and to predict accurately which prospects the Jets are going to have more interest in and what prospects they could ultimately end up picking. And we are going to be making multiple videos. We already made one video breaking down one defensive ends that the Jets could draft. We're going to be coming out with a bunch of videos breaking down all the types of players they could draft because there are a lot of elite players. There aren't elite quarterbacks at the top of this draft class, but there are elite players who can really help the Jets get back on track should they get the right coach and if Woody Johnson can keep his hands off the team. But that's what we got for this one. So if you guys enjoyed, please hit the like button, subscribe, and as always, go Jets.